This name has been out there a lot, and I wanted to quickly mention this as a topic just because I know Patriots fans have heard these rumors, not necessarily related to the Patriots, but DK Metcalf, what's going to happen with him in Seattle? Last year of his contract, on his rookie deal, pre-agency. Bill Simmons coined that phrase, not me. I'm going to use it. Pre-agency DK Metcalf, meaning now is a time where he's going to decide whether it's going to be a long-term extension in Seattle or it's going to be playing elsewhere this time next year or even sooner than that. We've seen so many different receivers at this point, from Tyreek Hill to Davante Adams to all these guys over the last couple of years that have moved on this contract year because the team can't agree to a long-term extension. Their current club can't agree to a long-term extension. The starting point with DK Metcalf is $20 million per year. The deal that Mike Williams got, the 3 for $60 from the Chargers, that's the absolute low point for a DK Metcalf contract. My guess is that he probably might hit a 5-year, $100 million deal. Not obviously fully guaranteed, but somewhere around that. Do you buy that the Seahawks want to keep DK Metcalf? Because I believe that Pete Carroll used the same phrase he used with Russell Wilson when he said, we plan on, or whatever the wording was, to have DK Metcalf on the roster next year. Said that about Russell Wilson at the Combine, and here we are. So do you think that the DK gets moved? Would you like him here in New England if he does get moved? Do you think he's worth it? What would you get up for him? Where are you on this?
Yeah, I don't think Seattle's going to trade him. I know that there's that quote or whatever. And look, he could want out, but they're kind of in a perfect situation where they don't have Russell Wilson's contract weighing them down. They really don't have any big contracts weighing them down.
Yeah.
They can afford to pay him. They're going to have a rookie quarterback on the rookie quarterback deal, the affordable deal. So they're going to have more money to spend. And look, what's the conversation we've been having all off season? I know, the Bengals had it last year. The Jets are having it now. You get the young quarterback. You want to pair him with the stud wide receiver. You're looking for a guy who's probably about 25, 26 as a true deep ball threat. Bengals have him. The Seahawks have him, and the Bengals have him too. But the Seahawks have him in DK Metcalf. I don't see the incentive to move him. Like a guy like Tyler Lockett's 30. By the time they get through this rebuild, Tyler Lockett's not going to be, a contributor. So it makes sense to move him. You come out of the other side of this rebuild, DJ Metcalf's going to be 27, 28. He's going to be right in his prime. And you have that elite receiver for your young quarterback. So I wouldn't, even if he asked for a trade, if I'm the Seahawks, I really dare him to do it. I started 3 first-round picks. And if he's going to let him hold out, right? Let him hold out. Let him waste years off his prime. Let him tank his value. Unless I can get an absolute haul for him, like an absolute haul, because
I think you could. The big question is more. So the phrase that Pete Carroll exactly used was the Seahawks intend to have DK Metcalf on the roster, which is exactly what they said about Russell Wilson. I think the biggest thing is with DK, does DK want to be in Seattle? Now, he's came out and said since the Russell Wilson trade that he feels like the leadership role left by Wilson, left by Bobby Wagner, it's now up to him to step up to that mantle, and talking about being the next guy in Seattle. But if you're DK Metcalf, the options that you can play with at quarterback are so much better out of the other 31 teams that would probably love to have DK Metcalf on their roster than anybody that Seattle's going to get, whether it's Malik Willis or whoever, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. All the other quarterbacks are going to be better pairs for DK than any of those guys. So when I look at Tyreek Hill, I look at Davante Adams and the way that they essentially force their way out of their current stops. I do wonder if we get to a point with a guy like DK where he's forcing his way out of Seattle more so than the other way around, because he looks at it and says, they have nobody to throw me the football. I'm a downfield receiver. It's not like DK is one of those gadget type of receivers where like a Deebo Samuel, where you can get away with having an average quarterback. You need to have somebody that can push the football accurately to him down the field. Otherwise he's useless. So ultimately, I think he's going to want to trade. What would it take to get him? I think it's at least a first and a second round pick like Davante Adams got in Green Bay, or for Green Bay from the Raiders. The reason why it was so low for that situation, I think, is because Devontae Adams only wanted to go to the Raiders. There was he wasn't going anywhere else. It hurt his market. The trade that the Dolphins made with Kansas City for Tyreek Hill might be a little bit. He's not quite as good of a player as Tyreek Hill. I don't think quite as productive as Tyreek Hill was. But I think you're talking about 5 or 6 draft picks going back to Seattle for a guy like DK.
If I'm Seattle, I don't move him. I think because you're essentially, it's weird. I talked last year a lot about the steps of the rebuild, right?
Yeah.
They have step 2 done. They still need to do step 1, but they have step 2. They have step 2 done. You talk about the quarterbacks in this year's draft. The pitch to DK would be try it with the guys in there for a year. Next year, you got Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Phil Dracovic, Anthony Richardson. You've got some cannon arm quarterbacks coming out next year. If he can put up for 1 year, suddenly if you're DK Metcalf, you're 26 years old, you're about to get the bag, Seattle can give it to you. You've got a capable quarterback. I think it would, so here's the thing. If we're going to do this, right, have this conversation about the wide receivers and the pre-agents and all that, I think I would put DK 3rd or 4th in terms of the most likely to move. He's probably better than some of these other guys, but I think it would make more sense. It would be better use of our time to have this conversation about, I think AJ Brown is the big one, right?
Because that entire, not to revisit the N'Keal Harry thing, but that entire,
it's that entire
draft class is coming up on it. So Terry McLaurin, AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel,
those are the
DK,
3.
Hunter Renfrow, if you want to go a little bit deeper, although with Josh McDaniels in Vegas, you would have to assume that Hunter Renfrow is going to be a priority for them. All those guys are now set to be free agents. None of them, obviously, were first-round picks, so they're all on expiring deals. When you look at the Patriots' flexibility, we talked about this a little bit with Miguel when we brought him on early in the offseason, and he discussed the issues that the Patriots have with draft capital. They don't have the capital like Miami did to make that Tyreek Hill trade happen. They don't have the capital to outbid some of these other teams when these guys come available. But that entire draft class is now looking for their payday, and all of them have earned it. Even in the chat, Nick said Deontay Johnson from Pittsburgh is another one. Not necessarily on the DK Metcalf, AJ Brown level, but still a really good player. So all those guys are due for contracts. All those guys could be moved at any time at this point, it feels like, just because we've seen how rocky this gets. Any one of these guys decides that they want out, there comes the trade. This is turning a lot more into the NBA. I don't necessarily like it, but that's kind of where we're at now, where players don't necessarily need to honor contracts and they can force their way out of situations. And this is what we're at. This is where we're at. It's, in terms of the Patriots and all these guys, I just don't see the Patriots ever giving up the draft capital to pull off a trade like Miami made for Tyreek Hill. Giving up Bill Belichick 4 or 5 picks to then go ahead and pay somebody $20 million a year over a 4 or 5 year contract. To me, I don't ever anticipate Bill Belichick being willing to part with that much investment for one player that's not a quarterback. Maybe he would do that for a prime star caliber quarterback, but then I don't even think so. So I don't know if the Patriots are going to be interested in any of these guys. Maybe if they hit free agency next offseason, they could throw a bag at somebody. But in terms of losing draft capital and paying the guy, it seems a little bit lofty to expect the Patriots to get involved in that.
Yeah, again, not all these guys are going to get moved. It doesn't make sense for the Titans to trade AJ Brown. It really doesn't, because their window's so small. They're going to have to, Tannehill's getting up there, and Derrick Henry, relative to running back, is getting up there. They're going to have to rebuild in a year or two anyway. It doesn't make sense to start shrinking that window. AJ Brown, to me, is the guy who's just going to play out the last year of his deal and then hit free agency. So, Again, it's another reason why, if you want to have this conversation about that 2019 class and guys who might be available, I think there's a conversation to be had there. I don't think DK Metcalf is the guy to have that conversation about. Again, I think it's AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel. Those are the guys, right? Titans are towards the end of their window. Jimmy Garoppolo sucks. We don't know what Trey Lance is going to be, but the Niners are kind of a mess. Also, that team's low-key embarrassing the way they keep losing in the playoffs. I could see Deebo wanting to get out of there, putting their left tackle in motion. Get the hell out of here with that. And Washington can't lock down a quarterback. And look, maybe they take Malik Willis
if I'm looking at this,
they have Carson
McLaurin
Wentz. I forgot. When they traded for Carson Wentz, Terry McLaurin. Maybe you trade for Terry McLaurin. He should ask his way out.
The guy that definitely could want out, and he's a great fit here. Right, plays inside, plays outside, runs great routes, good at the catch point down the field. I mean, he's a great football player. He seems to me like the guy that's most likely to not only pry loose because that organization's just dumb and doesn't know how to handle good assets, but also, secondly, want out with Washington. I mean, what has Washington, other than drafting him and giving him an opportunity, what has Washington done for Terry McLaurin? I mean, they've done nothing but kill his career around him. He's an all-pro caliber talent that's never been on a good football team, that's hardly ever played with a good quarterback. So yeah, that's the one that I circle and look at and say, okay, well, it'd be nice to dream about Deebo Samuel and correcting that wrong, or DK Metcalf and potentially correcting that wrong. But the guy that I really feel like makes the most sense now is somebody like Terry McLaurin, who has got to be wanting out of Washington. I mean, he just has to.
Yeah.